In this video, I'm going to show how much long treasuries go up with each percentage point decrease in the 10-year treasury, which tends to be tied to the Fed funds rate in a lagged way. So what I did was I went to this graph here by CNBC of the 10-year treasury, and I picked a few values for several days, 5 dates of the yields. And I also went to this graph here of the TLT, which tracks long treasuries. And I picked up the same values but for the TLT. So I built this little table here. So here you have the yields of the 10-year treasury, and here you have the values of TLT. Then I built a graph with these values. That's the graph here on the right. And I obtained the best fitting equation, line equation for these points. And as you can see, the points, they fit quite well, the line. And so this is a baseline value, and this is the number we're looking at. So for each decrease, this is why it's minus here. So for each decrease in the 10-year treasury yield percentage, of each 1% decrease, then you have a 19-point increase in the TLT. Since the values of the TLT are in a range that is close to 100, so you have 80, you have 134, this 19 translates into something like 20%. So in other words, for each decrease of 1% in the 10-year treasury yield, one would see an increase in the TLT of 19 points, and that translates roughly into 20%. Now, the value of the 10-year yield is highly correlated in a lagged way with the Fed funds rate. And the Fed funds rate is set by the Federal Reserve, and it has gone up over time. So as it goes up, so this is a 5-year graph, so as it goes up, as you can see, the yield of the 10-year treasury goes up as well, but in a lagged way. And it doesn't really follow exactly, but it's highly correlated. It doesn't follow exactly the Fed funds rate in a lagged way, but it's highly correlated, so in a lagged way. So you get a little bit of a gift here in that you know that the 10-year treasury yield follows the Fed funds rate in a lagged way, so an increase or decrease in the Fed funds rate is likely to impact the 10-year treasury yield in the future. And since investing in treasury is very safe, one can then use this relationship to invest in treasuries, long-dated treasuries, with maturities of 10 years, 20 years and higher, and then obtain a gain and appreciation. Now, you can do that by investing in the TLT. But there is probably a better option, I would say. TLT is a good vehicle, and it has a lot of liquidity because it has a lot of people invest in it. So you have $62 billion in assets. So a lot of people invest in it, but it has this expense ratio, which is 0.15%. Now, if you go to the VGLT, which is the equivalent. You can see the graphs are very similar. The VGLT is a Vanguard ETF that also tracks long treasuries like the TLT, but it has a much lower cost. So the expense ratio is 0.04. But it's not as liquid as the TOT, right? So $19 billion invested as opposed to $62 billion invested, probably because the TNT is more popular, is more often discussed in the media. But the VGLT is a better deal in terms of its expense ratio. And because of that, because of this lower expense ratio, to a certain extent, the yield tends to be a bit higher. So 3.74, 3.72. So this concludes this demo. Thank you for watching.